I was having a really, really poor period in my life, and I went and talked to my grandfather, and he was like, "Do you know the story about Greg Chappell?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "So there was this period when Greg Chappell was playing. I think he was playing ODIs and Test matches, and it was in the days when you would go between the two. And Greg Chappell just keeps making ducks and ones. I think he makes like an 11 or a 12. Then he makes a duck again. Then maybe another one. I forgot. I need to write down the exact numbers because it's really interesting to me. And
I think it was 8
when
ducks in
they,
a row or something like that.
I don't think it was that many ducks, but it was like 8 low scores in a row. You're right. And Greg Chappell is really, really confused about all this. And when he's asked about it by the press, he's like, "I'm batting really good, but I keep getting out." And that story has always meant quite a lot within my family. As I said, it was used as a thing of like, sometimes things aren't going your way, but that doesn't mean that you stop, right? Like you keep doing the
Mm.
preparation and you get it right and everything else. But it does tell you a little bit about form and about the sort of the fluctuations that we get within form and everything else. So, Robbie, I'm going to start very simply. What is form?
Wow.
Yeah,
Form
it's
is
not simple at all. I
the
completely threw you
no, it's
under the
not
bus
simple.
for no
Yeah,
reason.
yeah. No, I'm used to this by now. How many episodes have we done?
How many times have I thrown you under the bus? I'll get the stats on that for you later.
Yeah, we need stats on that, to be very honest. It's the one thing you've been in good form with.
Oh, always. I don't lose form with that.
Uh, so I think form to me is the ability to um, perform the skills that you want to perform with a certain amount of control
Mm.
consistently.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense though. I think the control and the consistency is the way that is worth looking at it. And so
Mm.
when we're out of form, let's forget the control for a moment. When we're out of form, I think the consistency is the hard thing to be able to find, right? So if you're out of form, how do you get back into form? Is probably that's like if you and I could answer that question over and over again, we'd be a lot richer than we are, right? Like it's a really
Yeah,
tough thing to be able to understand how to get back to being consistent.
yeah, it is. It's not easy. It certainly is one of the more challenging things to do. Um, it's something I've you know been very lucky to have read at a very young age. I don't know if you heard of this. Have you heard of Rudy Webster?
Yes. Is that Dr.
Yes.
Rudy
So
Webster?
Dr. Rudy Webster, yeah, Rudy Valentine Webster. So he wrote a book which was basically a bunch of interviews that he did with some of the best batters of the time, right?
Winning Ways? Is that what it was called?
Winning Ways. Oh my God, that book was freaking amazing. And I think it's in that book that I read about Greg Chappell being like hopelessly out of form and not scoring runs, right? And he goes about interviewing all of these great batters from those times. And uh, I I vividly remember reading about Sir Vivian Richards, which just made me a bigger fan of his after reading that piece, his interview. And I read that piece at least 40 times, 40, 50 times, because I loved it. And one of the things he said that, which I've like, as far, like, I'll take that to my grave. It's one of the things when it comes to cricket, that's something I'll actually take to my grave. And it's one of the things I struggled with because I was so like conscious about it and tried too hard to do it. And but it only worked for me when I actually absolutely relaxed, and came down to saying, okay, this is one thing I need to do, right? And he said, when I'm out of form, the first thing that I do is I stop worrying about my technique altogether. I'm not trying to bat well. All that I'm trying to do is trying to watch the ball from the bowler's hand till I've played the ball, till after I've played the ball, right? I'm paraphrasing, but for me, that little piece is something that I think, uh, you know, exemplifies what one needs to do with batting in a gist, right? To like by just doing that act of watching the ball, uh, by by proxy, you are actually just trusting your technique. You're not worried about your hands and your feet and your head and all of that. And you're taking away all the kind of simultaneous things that a batter needs to do to get to that zone, so to speak. You're not worried about getting into a zone. You're not worried about scoring runs. You're not worried about, where your head is, what the field is like. But you're just worried about watching the ball. You're just concerned with watching the ball and playing the ball till after you've played the ball, right? So it means from the bowler's hand, as he's running into bowl, he loads up, releases the ball, pitches, comes to you, then you play it, and then you kind of relax and switch off and switch on again. That for me, I think, was the most brilliant piece of advice I've read in a book. It was a very rare occasion, like very rare for me to actually read a book about cricket whilst I was playing it. But that one book, I must have been 17 or 18 when I read it. I absolutely loved that book. And for me, that for me is, I think, the epitome of batting. How well are you watching the ball? And when you watch batters, like some of the best batters in the world, like Sachin Tendulkar, bro. I have seen Sachin Tendulkar, like us watching a match on television at an Indian High Embassy, watching a test match. He's seeing the back of a bowler, right? He's seeing the, like, as he's loading up, he's calling what it's going to be. He's saying it's going to be in swinger, in swinger, out, and he's calling it. And when he bats, and people have heard the stories about Paji Sachin Tendulkar so many times about how he not just watches the ball, he kind of watches the seam and what the bowler is doing with the seam, right? And for me, I think some of the greatest batters have always done that incredibly well. Virat Kohli, for that matter, sort of Ganguly, Rahul Dravid, Ricky Ponting, Matthew Hayden. Matthew Hayden would walk down the wicket, man. His eyes wouldn't go off the ball at all, at all. And for
So,
me, I think that is the epitome of batting.
so we know that Sachin lost form towards the end of his career, right? And there would have been little periods within that where he lost form. Like, is that forgetting to look at the ball? Is that getting fixated on your hands or your feet or your
Yeah,
head? Do you
yeah.
think that's so? So do you think
I think
then
it is that.
form is something that you forget what you do that makes it work, and so it's very hard to go back to the thing that made it work?
I think form is the lack of form is being overwhelmed by multiple things at the same time, and you're trying to figure out all of those pieces at the same time, right? Because with batting, it's a matter of timing, right? The foundational piece is getting ready early. Like if you get ready early, you're giving yourself the best chance to play the ball well. If you get ready half a second late, you're behind the ball. You're playing catch up with the ball from that moment onwards, right? But with uh, you know with batting, we when we are out of form, we're generally overwhelmed with more than one or two aspects at the same time. It's all happening simultaneously, and our mind is trying to you know gather all of those things and kind of line them up in a row, right? One after the other, where it cascades one after the other. So like you tick one box, tick the other one, tick the other one, tick the other, and everything falls into place. But funnily enough, I've noticed, especially a little later on, post my first transformation in batting, I noticed that if I can get ready early and track the ball, irrespective of where my hands are, what I'm doing with my technique, more often than not, I end up playing the ball with the middle of my bat. And for me, that is a great place to start from, right? Because you got to exist at the wicket for you to score runs, right? And what gives you the best chance to exist at the wicket is by actually getting ready early and watching the ball through and through. And then if you're out of form during the course of a series, you're like, okay, you reduce the number of shots that you have, and you say, okay, I have 5, 6 scoring shots, but I'm going to bring it down to 2 scoring shots. And the rest of those deliveries, I'm going to try and get ready early, watch the ball, play it into the gaps, and rotate the strike. And that's how you manage form. And you do that long enough, you stay with that, and you're disciplined with it. If you have the mental wherewithal and the emotional wherewithal to kind of stay there for a period of time, your game begins to expand again, which is an incredibly beautiful experience to go through whilst that's happening to you. It's so much fun to experience that because you exist, and that in itself is a kind of a zone. It's not a zone of maximums, it's a zone of minimums, right? And then you kind of expand upon that over a period of time, which is phenomenal, man. Which I don't think words can kind of encapsulate what that feels like. It's, you got to live it in a sense.